Welcome to the channel. We're reviewing records from the 2000s. But I know during this time, I was looking for music that was progressive, new, strange. And it was a time when Amoeba in San Francisco stayed open till 9 o'clock. And I'd also been reading the fanzine Bull Tongue, so I knew what the terms were like scree and skronk. So in this case, my choices have long, multiple disc sets to their albums.
Yeah, the 2000s. For a number of years there, I was living just 2 blocks from Amoeba. That was when I really started building my record collection, again, after having sold it all in the 90s like a moron. But the two records that I chose today are both from long-running groups. I think these two records are among their best, but they were putting stuff out in the 90s and they're still putting stuff out today.
So my first choice is Beak, who this is self-titled from 2009. They're from Bristol, England, and it's a double LP set. One of the guys came from Portishead, and maybe there's a little bit of that in this, but it's mostly Kraut and minimal rock. It sounds more like the Silver Apples than anything, but updated. So Silver Apples from the 60s. It also sounds a little bit like Ohm, the experimental doom metal band, especially when they use distortion. But they have lots of echo, and it's sort of like that, but with a motoric beat. Not every song, but um, this was recorded in 12 days, live, no overdubs. They did like 10 takes of each song, but ended up taking the first take for most of the songs. So it's all live drums, guitars, analog electronics, and vocals used as sound. So it's no apparent words. It's lovely and murky and spooky. And it's got a locked in groove with a drony, throbbing inertia. So it really caught my attention back then, and I still love it. Overall tone is ominous with various mosquito-like sounds and electronic sound effects, but real subtle. And I keep it in my weirdo prog because it is rock-based. Beak, self-titled. Then I have Stars of the Lid. This title is Stars of the Lid and Their Refinement of Decline from 2007. It's a 3 record set released by Cranky Records. I just have to say this is ambient, but it's got more sonic nuances. It's got more depth and body. So there are synth sounds, but they're actually made by classical instruments, violas and cellos and things like that, combined with guitars and horns. But the overall sound is a synth sound because they're treated. And this sort of takes it into the electroacoustic subgenre. It's thoughtful. These are slow motion compositions that have sort of a floating equilibrium. They're not static, although they are very slow, and they play with negative space. So in some of the songs, there'll be one tone and a big space, and then it's all part of the same song. These compositions have this sort of pregnant pauses. The song titles are display some kind of sense of humor, I would guess, and then I don't hear it in the music. So song titles like Dung Titled, A minor, and a song on this disc is Another Ballad for Heavy Lids. And see it? There we go. December Hunting for Vegetarian Fuckface. I don't know what that means, but overall, these are slow, emotional swells of sonorous tones. So the effect is floating in space. Could describe it as multifaceted contemporary sonic symphonies with very minimal. It's their 7th release and considered a masterwork for them because of the beauty. And I keep it in contemporary classical.
My first record is Thievery Corporation's The Mirror Conspiracy from 2000. These guys, they're still around. They started off in the 90s. Washington, D.C. I guess they maybe, started out DJing and then they started writing their own songs. And this is their second full length record. And I would say their best. Overall, you would call it electronica or maybe trip hop, but there's a lot going on in here. A little bit of house, there's a good bit of dub. Um, there's some Indian and Middle Eastern influence. There's a good amount of Brazilian, particularly bossa nova. All of these influences are kind of distributed throughout the tracks. There's a number of guest singers. There's, more or less just transcendent. This song called Lebanese Blonde is probably one of my favorite songs ever. I think it's maybe not all that cool to like Thievery Corporation. I remember Pitchfork reviews just savaging them. I guess they weren't cool in the right way. To me, this is a great record. I think it's particularly important to me, maybe because it was one of the few pieces of music I had with me. I was working in Palestine, and I had this, and I had Bad Brains, and I had Fela Kuti, and not much else. This record helped get me through some stressful times. It's Dark Thrones, Dark Thrones and Black Flags from 2008. So Dark Throne, also super long running. They, just put out an album, I think last year. And they started in the early 90s. They were among the pioneers of the second wave of black metal. They were from Norway. They were part of the scene that, burned churches and kill people. Well, I don't think these guys did either of those things. And, their lo-fi take on black metal, blast beats, tremolo picking, raspy vocals. It helped define that sound. And that's what they did for a bunch of years until it would appear they got bored. The middle of the 2000s, they started putting out records like this. And they did three or four with a pretty heavy punk influence. These are sort of their Dark Throne's crusty albums. There's a lot of Discharge influence in here. There's a bunch of D-beat. There's definitely like a speed metal influence, a la, Agent Steel or something like that. There's some Doom, and there's lots of Celtic Frost influence. And there's still, something of a black metal influence. Not a typical black metal record at all. And it's all the better for it, I think. This is a really fun record. Their lyrics started getting really goofy and like things weren't, they weren't really going for, trying to sound evil or particularly dark anymore. And they started letting, I think, their naturally goofy personalities show a little bit. So you start getting songs like Hiking Metal Punks. And so you get lyrics like Marching On, Rain or Shine, Mammoths of the Forest, Worlds Collide, Hiking Metal Punks, Forever. And there's a bunch of songs kind of meta about rocking or about metal, so there's almost like AC/DC or something, like writing songs about rocking. These are good records. This is a particularly good one, and I recommend it.
Nice, cat.
Getting really goofy,
Nice, Ozzy.
evil,
Can you say goofy and act like an Egyptian? Ugh, goofy.
with Christ on the cross. God, why hast thou forsaken me? Present at the crucifixion. Goofy.
Say goofy.
Present at the crucifixion. Gorsh. Gorsh.